The diplomatic shuttle moved slowly toward the massive space station. Inside, Commander Jake Morrison sat quietly, watching the stars through the small window. He wore his best uniform, dark blue with silver medals on his chest. Beside him, Ambassador Lisa Grant reviewed her notes one more time. She had prepared this speech for months, and now the moment had finally arrived. The station was called Meridian Prime, and it was enormous. It floated in space between two bright suns, its metal surface gleaming in the double starlight. The station was neutral ground, where all the alien species of the galaxy could meet without fighting. Today, humanity would present their case to join the Galactic Council. Jake looked at Lisa and gave her a small nod. She smiled back, but he could see the tension in her eyes. They both knew this would not be easy. The aliens had been watching Earth for decades, and most of them did not think much of humans. Their ship, the Horizon's Edge, docked at one of the station's many ports. As Jake and Lisa walked through the corridors with their small team, they passed dozens of different alien species. Some looked almost human, while others were completely strange. One species was made of living crystal that sparkled as they moved. Another looked like giant reptiles with scales that changed color. The council chamber was a huge circular room with seats rising up like an ancient arena. At the center was a platform where speakers could address the assembly. Hundreds of aliens sat in the seats, representing their worlds and empires. The noise was incredible as they all talked in their different languages, but translation devices made it possible for everyone to understand each other. Jake and Lisa walked to the center platform. The room slowly grew quiet as everyone turned to look at them. Jake felt like an insect under a microscope. He kept his face calm and his back straight. A tall alien with 4 eyes and purple skin stood up. This was High Arbiter Thelzone of the Korvax Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. His voice boomed through the chamber. We are here to consider the application of the species known as humans from the planet Earth. Ambassador Grant, you may begin. Lisa stepped forward and began her speech. She talked about humanity's history, their art and music, their literature and philosophy. She explained how humans had overcome wars and disease, how they had built cities and explored their solar system. She spoke about Earth's diversity, the many cultures and languages that made humanity unique. Jake watched the aliens as Lisa spoke. Some seemed interested, leaning forward to listen, but many more looked bored or amused. He saw several reptilian Vextar delegates hissing to each other, and the sound translated as laughter. The crystalline lumini flickered in patterns that his translator said meant pity. When Lisa finished, there was polite silence. Then the questions began. A Vextar commander named Jarek stood up. His scales were dark green and his eyes were cold. Tell us about your military capabilities. What weapons do you possess? How fast are your ships? Lisa answered honestly. Our fastest ships use fusion drives. They can reach about 20% of light speed. We have railguns, missiles, and laser systems for defense. The chamber erupted in laughter. It was not kind laughter. It was the sound of beings who thought they were so much better than you that your attempts were funny. Jarek grinned, showing rows of sharp teeth. Fusion drives? How primitive. My people abandoned such technology 3,000 years ago. Your weapons are toys. A single Vextar destroyer could eliminate your entire fleet without effort. Another alien stood, this one covered in what looked like blue fur. What about your science? Have you achieved quantum entanglement communication? Can you manipulate gravity fields? Jake answered this time. We are working on those technologies. We have made significant progress in recent years. More laughter. The blue-furred alien shook his head. Working on them? How charming. We mastered these things before your species learned to make fire. High Arbiter Thelzone raised one of his 4 hands for silence. Let us be honest here. Humanity is very young. You have barely left your home planet. Your technology is centuries behind even our most primitive member species. Your ships move at speeds we consider laughably slow. You have no understanding of dimensional physics, no ability to manipulate space itself. He paused, looking down at Jake and Lisa with what might have been sympathy. You have accomplished much for such a young race, but you are not ready for the Galactic Council. Perhaps in another 1,000 years you will have advanced enough to join us. For now, I recommend we reject this application. A vote was called. One by one, the species cast their votes on glowing panels in front of them. Jake watched the display board. Red lights appeared one after another. Rejection, rejection, rejection. Only 3 species voted green for acceptance. And they were small, weak civilizations with little influence. Lisa's face remained calm, but Jake could see the muscle in her jaw tighten. She had worked so hard for this moment, and they were being dismissed like children who had wandered into an adult meeting. Jarek stood again, his voice full of mock kindness. Do not feel bad, humans. Return to your little planet. Play with your fusion drives and your railguns. Perhaps one day you will create something interesting. Until then, the galaxy has no place for you. The other aliens laughed again. Jake felt anger burning in his chest, but he kept it hidden. He caught Lisa's eye and saw her give the smallest nod. She was angry too, but she was also thinking the same thing he was. If only they knew. High Arbiter Thelzun declared the session over. The human application is rejected by council vote. Earth will not be granted membership or protection under council law. This session is concluded. As Jake and Lisa turned to leave the platform, Jake casually touched the small device on his wrist. It was hidden under his uniform sleeve, and no one noticed the brief flash of light as he activated it. The device began counting down. 72 hours. They walked back through the corridors of Meridian Prime with their heads high, ignoring the aliens who whispered and laughed as they passed. One young Vexistar actually pointed at them and said something his translator rendered as, "Look at the babies pretending to be adults." Back on the horizon's edge, Lisa finally allowed herself to show emotion. She slammed her hand on the table in the conference room. Babies, they called us babies. Jake poured 2 glasses of water and handed her one. Let them laugh, Lisa. Let them think we're nothing. She looked at him and slowly her anger transformed into a cold smile. They have no idea, do they? Not even a little bit, Jake said. He pulled out a secure communication device and entered a long code. After a moment, a voice answered. Colorado base, this is Morrison. The council rejected us as expected. The Korvax were particularly insulting. I think we can count on them making a move. The voice on the other end belonged to Dr. Nathan Pierce. Understood, Commander. We're ready on our end. Project Vanguard is operational and waiting. How's our captain doing? Jake asked. Captain Blake reports all systems are perfect. She says to tell you she's looking forward to showing the galaxy what humans can really do. Jake smiled. Tell her we'll be sending some visitors her way soon. I have a feeling the Korvax won't be able to resist such an easy target. He ended the call and looked at Lisa. Now we wait. They insulted us publicly, showed the whole galaxy that humans are weak and unprotected. Some empire out there is going to see an opportunity. Lisa nodded slowly, and when they come to Earth expecting an easy conquest, they'll find out that humanity has been preparing for this moment for 15 years. Jake finished. They'll learn that sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one everyone underestimates. Outside the window, Meridian Prime slowly shrank as their ship moved away. Inside that station, hundreds of alien species continued their business, already forgetting about the insignificant humans who had been rejected. They talked and planned and laughed, secure in their superiority. None of them noticed the small quantum signal that had been sent from Jake's wrist device. None of them detected the answering pulse that came from a hidden location in a dimension they did not even know existed. The countdown had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 weeks passed after humanity's rejection at Meridian Prime. Life on Earth continued as normal for most people. They went to work, spent time with their families, and watched the stars at night without knowing what was coming. But deep in the government buildings of Washington, New York, and Moscow, people knew. They had been expecting this. They had been preparing for this. The warning came on a Tuesday morning. Deep space sensors detected them first. 30 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. They were Korvax warships, massive and deadly, their hulls painted in the deep purple that marked them as part of the Empire's military fleet. At the center of the formation was the largest ship anyone from Earth had ever seen. The Eternal Dominion was 3 kilometers long, bristling with weapons. It was Admiral Krelvis's flagship, and it had destroyed entire civilizations. The message came through on all frequencies, broadcast to every human colony in the solar system. Admiral Krelvis appeared on screens everywhere. His 4 eyes gleamed with confidence, and his purple skin seemed darker somehow, like a storm cloud. People of Earth, he began, his voice smooth and cold. I am Admiral Krelvis of the Korvax Empire. Your planet has been selected for incorporation into our territory. We have observed your world for many years and find it strategically valuable. Your resources will serve the Empire well." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You have 72 hours to surrender. Power down your weapons. Prepare your leaders for transfer to our custody. If you comply, your people will be treated fairly and given roles within the Empire. If you resist, we will demonstrate why the Korvax have ruled this sector of space for 10,000 years." The transmission ended. Across Earth, people stood in shock. The government had kept the Council rejection quiet, so most citizens had no idea the Galactic Council had refused to protect them. Now an alien empire was demanding their surrender, and they had 3 days to decide if they would fight or submit. President Helen Carter sat in the White House Situation Room, surrounded by military leaders and advisors. The room was deep underground, protected by meters of concrete and steel. Large screens showed the Korvax fleet hanging in space like hungry sharks. General Marcus Webb stood at the front, pointing to a display of Earth's military forces. "We have 48 ships in our defense fleet. They're good ships with brave crews, but against Korvax technology, we're outmatched. Their shields can absorb anything our railguns can throw at them. Their plasma weapons will cut through our hulls like paper." President Carter looked tired. She had not slept since the message arrived. "What are our chances if we fight with conventional forces?" "Honestly, Madam President, almost zero. We might destroy 2 or 3 of their ships if we're very lucky and very clever. Then they'll wipe us out." General Webb pulled up images of past Korvax conquests. Planets turned to ash. Cities melted to glass. "This is what they do to species that resist." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what came next, but no one wanted to say it. Finally, Lisa Grant spoke up. She had rushed back to Earth as soon as the Korvax appeared. "We could surrender," she said quietly. "Save billions of lives. Accept their rule and hope we can negotiate better treatment later." "No," said a new voice. Everyone turned to look at the screen where Dr. Nathan Pierce had joined via secure video link. He was calling from somewhere in Colorado, from a facility so secret that most people in this room did not know it existed. "No surrender," Nathan repeated. "We didn't spend 15 years on Project Vanguard just to give up when the moment finally arrived." President Carter nodded slowly. "Doctor, are you absolutely certain it will work? We're betting everything on technology we've never tested in real combat." Nathan's face was serious. "Madam President, Captain Blake and her crew have been training in that ship for 2 years. Every system has been tested thousands of times. The Chimera is ready. More importantly, the Korvax have no idea what's about to hit them." General Webb pulled up a star map. "Even if the Chimera works perfectly, we need to make this look real. The Korvax need to think we're actually trying to defend ourselves with our regular fleet. Otherwise, they might get suspicious and withdraw before we can show them what we've got." President Carter made her decision. "General, deploy the fleet. Make it look like we're preparing for a desperate last stand. Let Admiral Krelvis think he's about to crush a primitive species." She turned to the screen showing Nathan. "Dr. Pierce, activate Project Vanguard. Contact Captain Blake and tell her it's time." Nathan nodded. "Yes, Madam President. I'll begin the final sequence now." The meeting ended and people rushed to their duties. President Carter stayed in her chair for a moment, looking at the images of the Korvax fleet. So powerful, so confident. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Far away, deep beneath the Colorado mountains, Dr. Nathan Pierce walked through corridors carved from solid rock. He passed through security checkpoint after security checkpoint, each one more serious than the last. Guards in black uniforms nodded as he went by, their weapons ready. Finally, he reached the main control room. It was huge, filled with equipment that would look like magic to most scientists on Earth. Screens showed data flowing in streams of numbers and symbols. In the center of the room was a platform with a single chair, and sitting in that chair was a connection device that looked like something from a science fiction movie. Nathan sat down at his main console and began typing commands. Around him, technicians prepared their stations. They all knew what was about to happen. They had trained for this moment just like Captain Blake had. "Status report," Nathan said calmly. A young woman at a nearby console answered. "Quantum field generators at full power. Dimensional anchors stable. The gateway is ready to open on your command. Energy reserves? At maximum. We can maintain an open connection for 48 hours if needed." Nathan took a deep breath and opened a communication channel. It was not a normal radio signal. This communication traveled through dimensions that most species did not even know existed. It reached a place that should not be possible, a space that existed outside normal reality. Colorado base to Captain Blake. Do you read? The response came immediately, crystal clear despite the impossible distance. This is Captain Blake. I read you perfectly, Nathan. We've been waiting for your call. The Korvax fleet has arrived. They're demanding our surrender. The President has approved Chimera Protocol. You are clear to engage. There was a pause, then Sophie Blake's voice came back, filled with calm confidence. Understood. Tell the President we'll handle it. Tell the fleet to put on a good show, but stay out of our way when we arrive. And Nathan? Yes, Captain? Tell those Korvax admirals that they should have been nicer at that council meeting. Nathan smiled. Will do. Opening the gateway in 60 seconds. See you on the other side. He began entering the final sequence of commands. Around the control room, machines that had taken 15 years to build hummed to life. Energy flowed through conduits that existed in 7 dimensions at once. Reality itself began to bend. In space around Earth, the human defense fleet moved into position. 48 ships formed a protective shell around their home world. Every crew member knew they were probably going to die, but they were ready. They would buy time for the evacuation ships for the people on the ground. They would show the Korvax that humans did not surrender easily. Admiral Krelvis watched from his command chair aboard the Eternal Dominion. His officers reported the human fleet movements with barely contained amusement. The primitive ships were spreading out, trying to cover as much space as possible. It was a good formation for beings with such limited technology, but against the Korvax it was meaningless. How much time remains? He asked. 47 hours, Admiral. Good, let them wait. Let them fear. When the deadline expires, we'll destroy half their fleet in the first minute, just to show them how hopeless this is. Then we'll offer them one more chance to surrender before we finish the job. His officers agreed, their 4 eyes gleaming with anticipation. None of them had ever fought humans before. This would be easy. This would be fun. Just another primitive species learning that the Korvax Empire was unstoppable. Deep in Colorado, Nathan Pierce pressed the final button. The gateway opened. Somewhere that should not exist, in a dimension beyond normal space, the Chimera began to move. The countdown reached 0, and everything changed. The 72 hours ended exactly on schedule. Admiral Krelvis sat in his command chair, watching the countdown reach 0 with satisfaction. The humans had not surrendered. They had not begged. Instead, their small fleet held position around their planet like toys defending a castle. Begin the attack, he ordered. Destroy 10 of their ships. Show them what happens when primitives refuse to submit. His weapons officer began targeting solutions. 30 Korvax warships powered up their plasma cannons. Energy built in chambers designed to tear through metal and flesh. This would take seconds. Then the universe screamed. Every sensor on every ship, human and Korvax alike, began shrieking warnings. Not the normal alerts of weapons fire or shield impacts. These were sounds that meant something impossible was happening. Reality itself was breaking. On the main view screen of the Eternal Dominion, space began to crack. Not like glass breaking, but like a curtain being torn. Through the cracks, light poured out that was not quite light. Colors that should not exist flickered at the edges of the tier. Scientists would spend years trying to explain what happened next, and most of them would fail. The 7th dimension opened, and through it came the Chimera. Admiral Krelvis stood up from his chair so fast he nearly fell. His 4 eyes went wide with shock. Around him, his officers made sounds of disbelief in their language, sounds that translated to horror and confusion. The ship was massive. It dwarfed the Eternal Dominion the way an ocean liner dwarfs a fishing boat. Its hull was dark, almost black, but it was not the black of paint or metal. It was the black of deep space, the black of places where light had never been. Across its surface, blue geometric patterns glowed with cold fire. The patterns moved and shifted like living things, never staying in one configuration for more than a moment. But the most disturbing thing was how it moved. The Chimera did not fly through space like normal ships. It phased in and out of reality.
1 second it was solid, the next second it was transparent.
It existed in multiple dimensions at the same time, and just looking at it made human and alien eyes hurt. Inside the Chimera, Captain Sophie Blake sat in her command chair on a bridge that would have amazed any engineer in the galaxy. The controls were not just buttons and screens. They were interfaces that connected directly to her mind through technology that used human consciousness itself as a bridge to higher dimensions. Lieutenant Dan Cole sat at the tactical station to her right. "All weapon systems ready, Captain. Dimensional shields at full power. We are operating in 7-dimensional space with full stability." Sophie nodded. She felt the ship around her like an extension of her own body. After 2 years of training, she and the Chimera had become one. She opened a communication channel that broadcast to both the human fleet and the Korvax Armada. "This is Captain Sophie Blake of the USS Chimera to all vessels. Korvax fleet, you have 30 seconds to power down your weapons and withdraw from this system." The response came after a moment of stunned silence. Admiral Krelvis found his voice, though it shook with anger and disbelief. "What is this? What kind of trick have you primitives pulled? That ship cannot be real. Your species does not have dimensional technology. This is impossible." Sophie's voice remained cold and calm. 20 seconds. Krelvis turned to his science officer. "Scan that ship. Tell me what we're facing." The science officer worked frantically at his console. "Admiral, the readings make no sense. The ship exists in normal space, but also in at least 6 other dimensions simultaneously. Its energy signature is unlike anything in our database. The hull material is phasing in and out of reality. I cannot get a solid target lock because it keeps not being there. Can we destroy it?" Krelvis demanded. "I don't know, Admiral. I don't even know if our weapons can hit it." Sophie's voice came through again. 10 seconds. Admiral Krelvis felt something he had not felt in decades. Fear. Real fear. But he was Korvax, and the Korvax did not show fear to inferior species. He would rather die than look weak in front of these humans. "All ships target that vessel and fire. Everything we have. Tear it apart!" 30 Korvax warships opened fire at once. The space between them and the Chimera filled with death. Plasma bolts bright enough to blind. Antimatter missiles that could crack a moon. Graviton beams designed to tear ships into pieces by manipulating gravity itself. It was enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. The weapons reached the Chimera and passed right through it. Sophie had given the command 1 second before impact. The ship phased completely into the 7th dimension. For that brief moment, it did not exist in normal space at all. The Korvax weapons hit nothing but empty vacuum. The plasma dissipated. The missiles exploded harmlessly. The graviton beams found no mass to manipulate. Then the Chimera phased back, completely undamaged. Sophie looked at her tactical officer. "Lieutenant Foster, target their destroyers. Dimensional cascade setting 4. I want them contained, not destroyed." Lieutenant Amy Foster worked her controls. Targeting solution locked, firing. The Chimera's main weapon fired. It was not a beam like a laser or a bolt like plasma. It was a wave of dimensional energy that rippled through space like water. When it hit the first Korvax destroyer, something impossible happened. The destroyer simply stopped existing in normal space. One moment it was there, guns firing, engines burning. The next moment it was gone. Not destroyed, not teleported, just gone. Inside that destroyer, the crew panicked as they realized they were trapped in a pocket dimension. They could see their ship and each other, but when they looked outside, there was nothing. Just endless gray void. Time moved differently here. What felt like minutes to them would be hours in normal space. The dimensional cascade hit 2 more destroyers. They vanished the same way. Admiral Krelvis watched 3 of his ships disappear from reality and felt his confidence shatter like glass. "Return fire. All ships, evasive maneuvers." But it was useless. The Chimera's secondary weapons began firing. These were projectiles, but not normal missiles. They phased in and out of reality as they flew, appearing in normal space just long enough to pass through enemy shields before phasing back out. The Korvax shields were designed to stop attacks that existed in normal space. They could not stop weapons that barely existed at all. The projectiles were not explosive. They were surgical. They hit engine sections and weapon arrays with perfect precision. Korvax ships lost power. Weapons went offline. Ships that had been ready to commit genocide moments ago now drifted helplessly, crippled but intact. Dan Cole monitored the tactical situation. Captain, 15 enemy ships disabled. 3 contained in dimensional pockets. The remaining 12 are attempting to withdraw. "Let them go," Sophie said. "Track their course, but do not pursue. We've made our point." Admiral Krelvis watched his fleet fall apart. His mighty warships, the pride of the Empire, were being swatted aside like insects. The Eternal Dominion had not been hit yet, but only because the human ship seemed to be saving it for last. Sophie opened a channel directly to the Admiral. Admiral Krelvas, your fleet is finished. I am powering up a dimensional weapon aimed directly at your flagship. If I fire, you and your crew will spend the rest of your lives in a dimension where time moves so slowly that the universe will end before you experience a single day. She paused, letting him think about that. But I am not going to fire. Do you know why? Because humanity is better than you. We don't destroy those who surrender. We give them chances to learn from their mistakes. Krelvas said nothing. What could he say? His entire worldview had collapsed in 20 minutes. Your ships will be released from dimensional containment once your empire withdraws all claims to human space and pays reparations for this attack. Sophie continued. You will return to your worlds and tell your leaders what happened here today. Tell them that humanity is not prey. Then she opened a channel to Meridian Prime, to the Galactic Council that had rejected humanity 3 weeks ago. Her message was broadcast across dozens of systems. To the Galactic Council and all member species, this is Captain Sophie Blake of Earth. 3 weeks ago you rejected humanity's application to join your council. You called us primitive. You laughed at our technology. You said we were not ready to exist among the stars. She gestured at the view screen showing the crippled Korvax fleet. I want you to see what happened when the Korvax Empire tried to conquer the species you mocked. This ship, the USS Chimera, operates using dimensional technology that your civilizations did not even know existed. We have had this capability for 15 years. We chose to keep it secret until the moment we needed it. The channel was silent. Across the galaxy, beings who had dismissed humanity now watched in shock. Humanity respectfully declines your rejection, Sophie said. We do not need your permission to exist among the stars. We will take our place in this galaxy on our own terms. However, we are still willing to discuss council membership. But this time we will be negotiating as equals, not as supplicants begging for acceptance. She ended the transmission. The Chimera began to phase back toward the 7th dimension, its hull flickering like a ghost. Captain, Dan Cole said quietly, we've just made a lot of powerful species very nervous. Sophie smiled. Good, let them be nervous. Let them wonder what else humanity has been hiding. Sometimes the best defense is making no. The aftermath of the Chimera's appearance spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. Every species with communication technology heard about what happened to the Korvax fleet. News broadcasts showed images of the massive black ship with its glowing blue patterns. Scientists argued about how it worked. Military leaders tried to understand how they could defend against it. On Meridian Prime, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The massive chamber was packed with representatives, and the mood was very different from 3 weeks ago. Where before there had been casual arrogance, now there was nervous tension. High Arbiter Thelzun stood at the center podium. His purple skin looked paler than usual, and his 4 eyes moved constantly as if he expected danger from every direction. Members of the Council, we face an unprecedented situation. A species we believe to be primitive has demonstrated technology that surpasses our own. We must determine how to respond. The Vextar Commander Jarek stood up. His scales were darker than normal, a sign of stress in his species. We mocked them. We called their ships toys. We laughed at their weapons. And all the time they were hiding something that makes our technology look like stone tools. A crystalline Lumine representative flickered in patterns that translated to deep concern. The question is not just about their ship. The question is what else they might have. If they hid one revolutionary technology for 15 years, what else are they hiding? Another representative spoke up, this one from a species that looked like tall, thin birds. We need information. We need to understand how this dimensional technology works. We should offer humanity full council membership immediately, along with generous trade agreements if they will share their secrets. Share their secrets? Jarek hissed. You think they will just give away the technology that makes them the most powerful military force in known space? They would be fools to do so. The debate raged for hours. Some species wanted to approach humanity with friendship and alliance. Others argued for isolation, withdrawing from human space and hoping they would be left alone. A few mostly military powers quietly discussed whether a coalition could be formed to counter this new threat, though no one said this out loud. Finally, Thelzun called for order. We will send diplomatic envoys to Earth. We will offer formal membership in the Council with full voting rights and no probationary period. We will apologize for our previous treatment of their delegation, and we will hope that humanity proves to be more gracious in victory than we were in our dismissal of them. The vote was unanimous. Every species agreed, some because they genuinely wanted peace, others because they were afraid. Back on Earth, President Helen Carter sat in the Oval Office with her key advisors. Jake Morrison and Lisa Grant had just returned from debriefing sessions. General Marcus Webb stood by the window looking out at the city. Dr. Nathan Pierce was on video screen calling from Colorado. The diplomatic messages are flooding in, Lisa reported. 47 species have sent requests for formal meetings. The Galactic Council wants to offer us full membership. Even the Vextar, who insulted us so openly, have sent a message asking for talks. President Carter looked tired but satisfied. And the Korvax? General Webb turned from the window. Admiral Krelvas has been recalled to his homeworld in disgrace. The Korvax Empire has formally withdrawn all claims to our system and offered reparations. They've also requested the return of the 3 ships we trapped in dimensional pockets. Let them wait a bit longer, President Carter said. Not too long, we're not cruel, but long enough that they understand the position they're in. Nathan Pierce spoke from the screen. Madam President, we need to discuss what we're going to share and what we're going to keep secret. Every species in the galaxy now wants to know how the Chimera works. We need a policy, the President nodded. That's why I called this meeting. Lisa, what's your recommendation? Lisa had been thinking about this since the battle ended. We share some things, but not everything. We explain the basic theory of dimensional physics, enough to prove we understand what we're doing. We offer to help species develop their own research programs. But the actual construction details of the Chimera, the weapon systems, the dimensional drive technology, that stays secret. We also need to position ourselves as protectors, not conquerors, Jake added. There are hundreds of younger species out there who are in the same position we were in 3 weeks ago. Weak, vulnerable, afraid of being conquered by stronger powers. We should offer them protection. General Webb crossed his arms. That's a big commitment. We can't protect everyone. We don't need to protect everyone, Jake replied. We just need to protect enough species that it becomes known that humanity will stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves. It changes the whole dynamic of galactic politics. President Carter considered this. She thought about her own children, her grandchildren, the future of humanity. They had hidden their greatest achievement for 15 years, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. Now they needed to use this moment wisely. Here's what we'll do, she said. We accept the Council's offer of membership, but we make it clear we're joining as equals, not as grateful newcomers. We establish a protective alliance system for younger species. We share enough of our dimensional research to prove we're serious about cooperation, but we keep the military applications classified. She looked at each person in the room, and we start working on whatever comes next. Because you can be sure that every major power in the galaxy is now racing to develop their own dimensional technology. We have an advantage, but it won't last forever. We need to stay ahead. Nathan nodded from the screen. We're already working on it, Madam President. Project Vanguard was just the beginning. We have concepts for dimensional sensors, defensive shields, even ways to block other ships from accessing higher dimensions. But it will take years to develop. Then we start now, President Carter decided. General Webb, I want our conventional fleet modernized and expanded. Even with the Chimera, we need numbers. Jake, Lisa, you're going back to Meridian Prime for the formal membership ceremony. Be diplomatic, be gracious, but make sure everyone understands that we earned our place at that table. The meeting ended. As people filed out, Lisa stayed behind for a moment. Madam President, can I ask you something? Of course. When we first developed the Chimera, when we realized what we had, were you ever tempted to just reveal it immediately? To use it to demand respect instead of waiting for someone to attack us? President Carter smiled sadly. Every single day, Ambassador. Every day I watched humanity be dismissed and ignored. I wanted to show them what we could do. But Dr. Catherine Morris, the scientist who started Project Vanguard before she died, told me something I'll never forget. She said that if we revealed the Chimera too early, we'd just be another aggressive species with a big weapon. But if we waited until we needed it, until we were threatened, then we'd be the species that defended itself. The difference matters, Lisa understood. It changes the narrative. Exactly. Now we're not the humans who built a superweapon. We're the humans who were threatened and defended themselves with technology no one knew we had. We're the underdog who won, not the bully with a big stick. Far away, on dozens of different worlds, reactions to humanity's revelation continued. Some species saw opportunity, some saw danger, but all of them saw humans differently now. In the science departments of universities across the galaxy, researchers pored over the limited information available about dimensional physics. They ran calculations and built theoretical models. Some of them would make breakthroughs. In 50 years, other species would have primitive dimensional technology. But by then, humanity would be 50 years further ahead. In military academies, instructors began teaching new doctrine. The old assumption that young species were automatically weak had been shattered. Now every contact with a new civilization would include the question, what might they be hiding? And on Meridian Prime, preparations began for humanity's formal induction into the Galactic Council. This time there would be no laughter, no mockery. This time humanity would walk into that chamber as equals, and every species present would stand to welcome them. Captain Sophie Blake watched Earth through the viewscreen of the Chimera as the ship drifted in seventh-dimensional space. Lieutenant Dan Cole stood beside her. "Do you think they'll figure it out?" he asked. "How the dimensional drive really works?" Sophie shook her head. "Not for a long time. They'll focus on the technology, the engineering. They won't understand that the key was consciousness itself, that humans were able to develop this because of how our minds work. By the time they figure that out, we'll have moved on to eighth-dimensional technology. If such a thing exists." "Oh, it exists," Sophie said with confidence. "Dr. Pierce's team has already detected evidence of it. We just need time to understand it," Dan smiled. "We really are good at keeping secrets, aren't we?" "The best," Sophie agreed. "And that, Lieutenant, might be humanity's greatest weapon. Not the Chimera, not dimensional technology, but the ability to work in silence, to plan patiently, and to surprise everyone when it matters most." The Chimera phased deeper into the seventh dimension, invisible, and 3 months had passed since the Chimera appeared and changed everything. The galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality, a reality where humanity was not a weak young species, but a major power that had been hiding its true strength for years. The Galactic Council chamber on Meridian Prime looked different today. Workers had installed new seating sections to accommodate humanity's full delegation. Banners showing Earth's blue and green sphere hung alongside the symbols of ancient empires. The atmosphere was respectful, almost reverent, nothing like the mocking assembly from 3 months ago. Ambassador Lisa Grant stood in the center platform, but she was not alone this time. Captain Sophie Blake stood beside her in full military dress uniform. Behind them, Jake Morrison and a team of Earth's finest diplomats and scientists formed an impressive delegation. The Chimera itself hung in space outside the station, visible through the massive windows, a constant reminder of why everyone was being so polite. High Arbiter Thel Zun rose to speak. His 4 eyes looked directly at Lisa, and his voice carried none of the condescension from their first meeting. "Ambassador Grant, Captain Blake, honored delegates of Earth, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer our formal apology for our previous treatment of your application. We failed to see past our assumptions and prejudices. We underestimated humanity, and that was our mistake, not your failing." He gestured to the assembled council. "Today we correct that mistake. The council votes to grant Earth and all human colonies full membership with complete voting rights, effective immediately. You have earned your place among us not through our permission, but through your own strength and ingenuity." The vote was called. Every single species voted yes. There were no red lights this time, only green ones filling the display board. When the vote finished, the entire council rose in what seemed to be a standing ovation. Humans had arrived. Lisa spoke, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "The people of Earth accept this membership. We come to this council not seeking dominance but partnership. We believe that all species, young and old, deserve respect and protection. To that end, Earth proposes the creation of a new organization, the Protected Systems Alliance, to provide defense for species who cannot yet defend themselves." This caused murmuring throughout the chamber. The idea was not entirely new, but coming from humanity, with the Chimera as their enforcement tool, it carried real weight. A representative from a small species called the Torvin stood up. They were barely 4 feet tall with large eyes and gentle features. Their homeworld was beautiful but militarily insignificant. Ambassador Grant, does this mean that Earth would protect species like mine from conquest? Yes, Lisa said simply. That's exactly what it means. Any species who wishes to join the Protected Systems Alliance will receive Earth's guarantee of defense. Attack them and you attack us. Jarix, the Vextar commander who had mocked human weapons months ago, stood up slowly. His scales had returned to their normal color, but his voice was cautious. And what does Earth ask in return for this protection? Sophie Blake answered this time. Friendship. Trade on fair terms. A commitment to peaceful development. We're not building an empire. We're building a network of mutual support. The Vextar considered this. And if a member of this alliance is attacked by a council member species, then we respond according to the threat, Sophie said calmly. We prefer diplomacy, but if necessary, we will defend our allies the same way we defended Earth, with everything we have. The implications were clear. The Chimera had crippled a Korvax fleet without destroying a single ship. It had shown precision and restraint along with overwhelming power. Any species thinking about conquest would now have to consider whether their target had Earth's protection. Several smaller species requested immediate meetings to discuss joining the alliance. The power dynamics of the galaxy were shifting in real time. After the formal ceremony ended, Lisa and Sophie attended a reception in one of Meridian Prime's grand halls. Species who had ignored or insulted humanity before now lined up to speak with them. Some were sincere. Others were clearly trying to figure out what other secrets humans might have. High Arbiter Thelzun approached Lisa privately. May I speak with you candidly, Ambassador? Of course. The Korvax fleet that attacked Earth. Your Captain Blake trapped 3 of their ships in dimensional pockets. When will you release them? Tomorrow, Lisa said. We've made our point. Their crews have experienced about 6 hours subjective time while 3 months passed out here. That's less than enough. Thelzun nodded slowly. You showed mercy. Not all species would have. Humanity learned a long time ago that mercy is not weakness, Lisa replied. We could have destroyed that fleet. We chose not to. We want the galaxy to know that we can be strong without being cruel. A wise approach, Thelzun admitted. Tell me, Ambassador, how long did you plan this? The secret development of your dimensional technology, the timing of your reveal, all of it? Lisa smiled. Long enough. We knew the galaxy would not respect us until we proved ourselves. We also knew that if we tried to demand respect without proving it, we'd just start wars we weren't ready to fight. So we waited. We prepared. And when the moment came, we were ready. There are species who fear you now, Thelzun said quietly. I know, but fear based on respect is different from fear based on cruelty. We've shown we can defeat our enemies without destroying them. We've offered protection to the weak without demanding submission. Given time, I think fear will transform into trust. Across the hall, Sophie Blake stood near a window looking out at the Chimera. Dan Cole had joined her along with Lieutenant Amy Foster. It's strange, Amy said. 3 months ago, most people on Earth didn't even know we existed. Now we're galactic celebrities, Sophie laughed. I can do without the celebrity part. I prefer being mysterious. A small group of young aliens approached them nervously. They were students, studying at Meridian Prime's prestigious academy. One of them, a Lumini who flickered with patterns of excitement, spoke up. Captain Blake, may we ask you questions about dimensional physics? Sophie looked at Dan, who shrugged. Sure, why not? For the next hour, Sophie discussed the theoretical foundations of dimensional travel with the students. She explained how consciousness played a role in perceiving higher dimensions, and how humanity had leveraged their natural cognitive abilities to develop the technology. She was careful not to reveal any actual technical details, but the students were fascinated anyway. One student, from a species Sophie did not recognize, asked a particularly insightful question. Captain, do you think other species can develop similar technology? Absolutely, Sophie said. It will take time and different approaches based on how your minds work, but yes, we're not special. We just thought about the problem in a way that worked for us. Will you help us? Sophie considered this carefully. We'll share our research on the underlying physics. We'll help you understand the mathematics, but the actual engineering, the building of dimensional drives and weapons, that's something each species will need to develop on their own. We'll be teachers, not manufacturers. The students seemed satisfied with this answer. As they left, Dan spoke quietly. You know they'll eventually figure it out. In 50 years, maybe 100 other species will have dimensional technology too. I know, Sophie said. That's fine. By then, we'll be working on something else. Humanity's advantage isn't that we developed dimensional technology first. Our advantage is that we're good at developing things, period. We innovate quickly, we think creatively, and we don't give up. By the time others catch up to where we are now, we'll be somewhere else entirely. Back on Earth, President Helen Carter gave a televised address to the planet. Billions of people watched as she stood in the White House press room. My fellow humans, she began. Today, Earth took its place as a full member of the Galactic Council. We did not beg for this honor. We did not buy it. We earned it through our ingenuity, our courage, and our patience. She paused, looking directly into the camera. For 15 years, we kept the Chimera secret. I know many of you have questions about that decision. Why hide something so important? Why not use it to demand respect from the beginning? The answer is simple. We wanted the galaxy to underestimate us. We wanted potential enemies to think we were weak, because that would reveal their true intentions. The Korvax attacked us because they thought we couldn't fight back. By waiting for that moment, we turned what could have been a war of conquest into a demonstration of defense. We showed the galaxy not just that we're strong, but that we use our strength wisely. She smiled. Today, 43 species have asked to join our Protected Systems Alliance. They're asking humanity, a species that only went to space 200 years ago, to protect them. That's not just about the Chimera. That's about trust. They trust us because we've shown that we're strong enough to help them and wise enough not to exploit them. The address continued for another 10 minutes. When it ended, the reaction across Earth was overwhelmingly positive. People felt proud. They felt like their patience and sacrifice had been worth it. In Colorado, Dr. Nathan Pierce worked late in his laboratory. The Chimera had been the culmination of 15 years of work, but it was not the end.